Hi, I'm Gabriella Cortez, Show Me the Way practitioner and continuous student. Hi, and welcome to week 2. Today we're going to be looking into a memory. What you're going to need today is your Show Me the Way emotions map, your card that you picked from week 1, and your journal, notebook, or anything you really want to use to take some notes. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with today's little assignment. So what we're going to be doing is you have your emotions map here ready. And I want you to take a look at the card you had picked in week 1. The card that kind of like spoke the major theme about why it is you're here, and the one that we base the spider model after. So my card that I picked was number 23. And the word that connected to that was impermanence. So what we're going to do today is you're going to take your card. Now you could either focus on the image or focus on the word, but what we want you to do is to also focus on one of these 4 emotions: anger, fear, sadness, or worry. Don't worry about the joy right now. And what we want you to do is to take your word or your image card and connect it to one of the 4 that kind of resonates the most. For example, when I look at my picture card, or when I think of the word impermanence, the emotion I feel the most drawn to is fear. And you can do it either way. You can either choose to think of the word or focus on the image, depending on how you work and what kind of makes the best connection for you. Really try to focus and yet not focus between the connections, meaning take into consideration the 4 emotions, but don't try to push too hard. Allow the feelings to kind of come up naturally whenever you think of this picture or of the word. For example, when I was thinking impermanence, how does that make me feel? What is my initial reaction to it? Do I initially worry? Do I feel sad? Am I stricken with fear? Or do I get a pang of anger? You'll recognize them. And for me, personally, in this example, when I thought of impermanence, I immediately felt some fear. So that's the one I connected to. Once you've connected your word, your card, to an emotion, make a note of it. You can either write it down somewhere here on your map, maybe even close to the square, or take your journal or notebook or whatever it is you're using to jot anything down and make a note about the emotion you picked. We're going to use that and come back to it later. So now that you've connected your word or your image with an emotion, I want you to think of whatever memory comes to mind when you link these 2 together. So if you think impermanence, fear, impermanence, fear, I am asking myself to kind of like see what memories get jogged when I repeat those words. What comes to mind? Is it something recent? Something from my childhood? Is it a long story? Is it a short incident? Try not to overthink it. There are some memories that might pop into your head that won't even make sense at first, that might not have anything to do with the emotion or the words that you picked, but don't disregard it. If there is any kind of memory from your life that pops up when you repeat these words throughout your mind, take note of it and work with it. You never know the kind of message that's hidden behind a memory that pops up. So to use myself as an example, when I was thinking of what impermanence means to me and the emotion of fear, The initial memory that kind of popped up to me was when a relationship of mine was ending. I didn't exactly want to be in that relationship, and yet I was stricken with fear with the fact that the relationship was over, and somehow desperately wanted to hold on to it and bring it back to me, which kind of links initially to how I felt when I was creating my spider model. So now that you have your memory, it kind of helps to make a quick note of it and write it down. I'll personally take the memory I mentioned and kind of jot down the general idea of what the memory is. Okay, so that's kind of the general gist of my memory. Excuse my writing, but it's for me, not for you anyway. Make sure you write your own memory down. So now that you have your memory down, I want you to think about what strengths lie within the memory. I know sometimes it can be tricky, as sometimes these memories are not negative, but doesn't exactly make us feel strong or positive at first, but I guarantee you that there's always positive strengths within. For example, in my memory where a relationship wasn't working out or I didn't want to be in it anyway, but if the boy kind of beat me to the punch and broke up first, I was devastated and tried desperately to kind of get the relationship to work. Kind of tricky to see what kind of strengths are there, but there's definitely strengths. One could say that the fact that I wanted to continue on the relationship, I was determined. I drew on some inner strength. I was strong. I kind of had to use my wit about me to get them to come back, so I'd say I was witty. To be able to come back to a relationship, I'd have to be optimistic, so I put optimistic. You also need a lot of passion for that, so I put passionate. I'd have to call on the love we used to have, so loving. And they would kind of fight back, so I'd have to be a fighter for the relationship. And I did say I had to use my wit, and probably had to think of some creative ways to reason with them of why we should get back together. So, I was kind of cunning. Very good lawyer skills. Many times in the relationship, they were actually in the wrong, and to kind of want to get back together, I would have to forgive. Sometimes they would ask me why we should even be back together, and I had to kind of think of some good reasons, maybe even think ahead in the future of why we could be good together. So I'd have to kind of be positive. Also, I'd have to be a bit of a dreamer to think that this could actually work again. And to kind of pull everything together, I mean, to have to really go back into a relationship and put all these things into play, and I'd have to be a very kind of dedicated partner. So those are quite a few strengths, and there's probably way more to go on. Go back onto your memory, which is why it's a good thing to write it down, and really think about it. Really think about everything it took for you to kind of live through that experience. All the strength you can see, no matter how big or how small. There's always something that shows inner strength within your memory. So make sure to put as many as you can think of. Now comes kind of the opposing part. Think of what your limiting beliefs are within your memory. The kind of thoughts or beliefs you have about yourself that kind of work against you. For example, what was working against me here was that I thought I needed somebody else to love me so I could feel loved and worthwhile. I also didn't like the idea of being replaced. I didn't like the idea of something ending. Even if, we broke up and I didn't want to be with them, I was kind of afraid that they would replace me with somebody else. I didn't like the idea of being, replaceable. And there's many kind of limiting beliefs there. Write down what those might be. So what were your limiting beliefs? What was it within this memory that you recognized was something that was kind of working against you? Personally, for me, the main idea, my limiting belief for what was happening for me, was that I thought that their love for me defined my worth. That if they left me, if the relationship was over, the impermanence of the relationship, in a matter of speaking, to connect my card, then all of a sudden my worth as a person kind of disappeared. If we wanted to condense this into like one major limiting belief, my limiting belief would be that I allow my personal value to be defined by the people around me, in particular in my relationships. And this is basically the assignment for today. It may have felt like a short video, but don't take this video at face value or take the work lightly. When you have to actually make an effort to think about connecting your card to an emotion, bringing up a memory between your card and your emotion, finding your strengths, finding your limiting beliefs, trust me, it's going to take some time, and you're going to have to really dig deep and think about it. So make sure you gave yourself enough time today to really think about the answers and really put in as much effort as you could with the practice for today. Your homework for the week is to work on your strengths, or at least pay notice to them. Do you see yourself with these strengths from day to day in your week? Do you find at some point that you are optimistic or strong or passionate or forgiving? Can you see these strengths within yourself in daily practices? Take note of that. It's really interesting when you go from day to day to see exactly how all these strengths that you had with yourself in the past continue to be a vital part of who you are in the present. Aside from that, I hope today was a good session for you, and I'll see you next week.